Stephen Moffat is rather like Dracula in a way, because he's incapable of self-reflection. Yes, he's back, and he's only gone and bloody done it again. Get it? 'Cause blood.
Did you watch Dracula? No? Well, they really like telling us about all the blood. So, sit down, grab a glass of wine, and let us tell you about this astonishing show.
Okay, so we think you should go and watch this show. There's only like 5.5 hours to get through, but if you can't spare the time right now, we'll give you a brief rundown of what happens. And I promise this is not an exaggeration.
Episode 1 follows Jonathan Harker, a lawyer visiting Count Dracula's castle, where he's been assisting the Count with buying property in England. Dracula forces him to stay so he can absorb his life force and make himself younger and stronger, and also more English. Harker starts to discover strange things in the castle, including strange women, secret passageway, boxes full of zombies. Eventually, Dracula reveals to Harker that he's a vampire. What? No way! After being killed and resurrected, Harker escapes and ends up in a convent, where he tells his story to 2 nuns, one of whom is Agatha Van Helsing. And then Dracula climbs out of a dog, gets into the convent, and massacres everyone inside.
Episode 2 is a murder mystery, but we know who done it from the get-go. Dracula boards the Demeter and sets sail to England with a group of passengers and crew, who each have a secret or mysterious background, like they're going to be suspects. But they're obviously not, because Dracula. During the voyage, Dracula murders passengers one by one, collecting their attributes so he can blend in with society when he arrives, all the while recounting his experience to a mysteriously friendly Van Helsing. As passengers and crew start dying off, they come to realise that someone aboard must be the killer, and come to suspect the unknown passenger in room 9, who turns out to be Van Helsing, who Dracula's brought along for the ride. Also, room 9 is shaped like a big nut. The remaining passengers and crew are about to hang Van Helsing, who pretends to be a vampire for some reason, when she forces Dracula to reveal himself, so he runs away. The passengers and crew then throw away all of his dirt, some other stuff happens, and then they blow up the boat. But there was one last bit of dirt, so Dracula hides in it. For a while. And then he walks up onto the beach and, oh, there's a helicopter, there's a police car, oh, fuck!
Episode 3 is a love story about Jack and Lucy, and her gay best friend. So yeah, Dracula's here, in the modern day. Van Helsing's great-great-granddaughter is here? She's trying to catch him. She catches him and puts him in a perfectly built vampire prison with a toilet. But he leaves because he guessed the Wi-Fi password, and then he...
Joe, you forgot about the blood cult!
Oh, God.
So Helsing, this Helsing, not that Helsing, see, one's a nun from the 1800s, and this one, well, she has cancer. And she works for a blood cult, set up by Harker's widow. Remember her? So they get a bunch of students to donate blood to feed the vampire while they study him. One of these students is Jack. Wow, I love that wallpaper. So shiny. What were we talking about?
That kid Jack, and he's in love with Lucy, but she is in love with Dracula? Or was it Death? Oh right, Selfies! She's got a gay best friend and a beautiful apartment. Nice. So Dracula hangs out with Lucy in a purple graveyard, and there's Tinder and Whitby Abbey and Zombie Child, and she dies and screams in a mirror. Maybe mirrors are important.
Dracula's got a nice apartment too. They all go there for a party, I think. Lucy's been cremated, but she's not dead, and she's here now, and oh no. Jesus Christ.
Speaking of him, is he here? Above the door there? Do crucifixes matter? I remember something about crucifixes. Oh hey, old Helsing's back. Anyway, Jack stabs Lucy to death and then leaves. Okay.
Helsing and Dracula, are they flirting? What's going on? She then does a cool jump and reveals that it was all in Dracula's head all along. The sun can't hurt him.
Now knowing that his key weakness is a lie and he's more powerful than ever, Dracula decides it's the perfect time to die. So he drinks Helsing's cat's blood and then they have sex in the sun.
Yeah. We had some questions too. Part 2. Dramatic irony. It's that thing where audiences know stuff the characters don't. I did English A-level, whee! You already know who Dracula is. No, we're not doing that. But you know who Dracula is, and the show expects you to. Listen to the bit in the first episode where Dracula says his own name.
Dracula.
You know that Harker is in great danger having entered this man's castle, but it's also kind of funny, right? I don't know, I find it hilarious. It's campy, it's melodramatic, but does it take away from the seriousness of the moment? Maybe? There's a lot of moments like this in the show, but let's just look at episode 1 for now. Dracula keeps making these vampire jokes, mainly for himself, I guess? I mean, Harker doesn't even know what a vampire is at this point, even if his host is being a bit obvious. These are obviously for the sake of the audience too, it's kind of funny.
They are without flavor.
I mean,
Fresh blood.
it does get a bit tiring.
No one living here.
Eventually, especially on the boat. We'll get to the boat.
I've been dying to meet you.
I mean, maybe it's not fair to make fun of this kind of thing. A lot of it just seems to be the creators being aware that they're going over well-trodden ground. Some of these lines are direct references to older films.
I never drink.
I never drink.
I do not drink.
Why?
And it's not like it really ruins the drama. I still think episode 1 is some of the strongest moments of horror, like that bit with the baby.
There is no baby.
Or when Dracula climbs out of the dog.
I don't know about you girls, but I do love a bit of fur.
And the stuff at the gate is cool, even when Helsing gets her own dramatic name reveal and opens the gate on a hunch. And there are still surprises, especially considering this is a show where Stephen Moffat is half of the writing team. I mean, it isn't even set in the modern day, and Mark Gatiss is nowhere to be seen. And I'm not saying the show is bad because Harker doesn't catch on earlier that, yeah, maybe that Dracula guy is bad news and maybe he's in some danger. I mean, I am a bit. But it's not like the book doesn't do this too. And I'm aware that we wouldn't even have a story if Harker just legged it the moment things seemed off. I mean, what would that even look like?
Actually, driver, could you help me with my cases?
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
What I am saying is, I think this leads to a larger problem, one that does affect the show's quality in my opinion. What would have happened if Harker had figured out who or what Dracula was before it was too late? Well, nothing. Nothing would have happened. This brings me to part 3, the pointlessness of Dracula's omnipotence. Dracula is an immortal, super-fast magic death machine, and at no point in the show is he in any real danger of being stopped. You can imagine how that might spoil the fun a bit? I can almost forgive this in episode 1, since we're mostly following Harker, and the sense of powerlessness in the face of this great evil lends itself to the horror. But even here there are exceptions. There's this bit when Harker, while recounting his story to Helsing, acts like he's about to get one over on Dracula. He's retroactively hopeful. Maybe this is where things are going to turn for Johnny.
No, but I had certain advantages.
I should be fascinated to know what they were.
I was enfeebled and trapped.
Well, indeed.
But then he describes himself losing and being killed. He was never going to beat Dracula, and you and all the characters in this scene know that because Harker's eyes are full of bugs. He was never going to win. The stuff he did didn't really matter. Do you see what I mean? I think to properly get this across, I'm going to have to talk about episode 2, my favourite episode of the series.
There's a tiny bit in the book, like 4 or 5 pages, which is an account, Captain Sokolov's account of his doomed period on the ship, the Demeter, as they're stalked by Dracula. And you have thought, wouldn't it have been great if that went on for longer? Well, it does now.
So, Dracula's getting on a boat to England, and he's brought all these wacky characters with him. You've got the captain, who blames himself for this other crew member losing a hand, but that won't stop him from always making the decision that will put his crew in danger.
We go on to England and double the watch.
There's this doctor who knows about the undead and his deaf-mute daughter who witnesses a murder, but doesn't say anything. And my personal favourite, not Piotr. He comes on the ship and says his name is Piotr. But it's not.
Marius.
Marius?
That's my real name.
Dracula starts killing people, both for fun and to gain their speech impediments, and says to Helsing that he could complete the journey with just a skeleton crew.
I've worked with those before.
So from the start, you know that the whole story is just being held together by this maniac's arbitrary restraint. I mean, this wouldn't be much of a problem if it weren't for the murder mystery element. After people start dying, it seems to take an age before the characters realise that the killer must be one of them. Like really, people are just sitting around having dinner or chilling out in each other's rooms when half of the crew and passengers have been murdered. And even then, you don't get the usual everyone is suspicious of everyone because everyone has dodgy secrets sort of thing, because if they did, everyone would immediately realise it's the freak in the cape who keeps saying stuff like this.
There is a killer on board. In plain sight. Or hiding.
This is what I mean. We've established that Dracula is all-powerful and he knows it, so he acts super suspicious just to entertain himself. But the show also wants there to be this drama where the characters figure out who the killer is. One of these things ruins the other. It's honestly fascinating. Like I said, this is really my favourite episode. I feel like I'd write a thesis on this. It's so singularly bizarre. You could say it's breaking the formula, but it's more like it's breaking the formula over the audience's head. The point is, too much of the show is just Dracula fucking around. Speaking of fucking around, Part 4, Dracula the no-homo vampire and the Bloofer Lady. So, let's talk about queerbaiting. This probably won't be the first time you've heard this term used in relation to Moffat's work, but just to attempt to define it here, it's when a creator will hint at or maybe imply gay relationships but won't explicitly depict them. Get it? Okay. So the show opens with Harker being asked to be fucked Dracula.
I'm asking Mr. Harker if you had sexual intercourse with Count Dracula.
Spoilers, he didn't. But this sets the stage for a lot of implied sexual tension between Harker and the Count. He tries to make him his bride, he uses his wife's nickname for him, and then there's the sex dream thing. Yeah, I don't really know what that was. I thought Harker was going to be gay from the get-go. Right after you have the "did you have sexual intercourse with Count Dracula" line, we see Harker reading a letter from his fiancée, in which she says she wouldn't mind if he had sex with other women while he was on his travels, and that maybe she'll have sex with other men, or women, while he's away. I mean, this is probably just meant to be a joke, they're so madly in love that neither of them would think about cheating on each other, but I just thought this was telling us that Harker was gay, and that their marriage was some kind of facade. I mean, it's not like they don't show us a sham marriage later on in the show in which the husband is gay. Couldn't help but feel similar vibes with Van Helsing as she talks about having sex dreams with another nun. This, along with everything else she says and does,
You don't seem like a nun.
It has been said.
made me think that maybe she was just pretending to be a nun to learn about Dracula. I mean, it's not like they don't show us a fake nun later in that very same episode. In an interview, Moffat specifically said that what Dracula does is non-sexual. He's not bisexual, he's bi-homicidal. So all that stuff with Johnny, don't worry. No homo, but I'm not buying it. Dracula sucking people's blood is definitely shown in a sexual way. There's still a lot of violent neck-biting, don't get me wrong, and Dracula explicitly gives other reasons for devouring people, aside from pleasure. I want to be like you. But they want to have it both ways. In the moments where it's portrayed sexually, and it definitely is, it's in strictly heterosexual situations, like with Lucy, or with
Sun Company.
Whew, so I suppose we're going to have to talk about Lucy now. Oh boy. My initial reaction to the story of Lucy Westerner, which takes up a big chunk of episode 3, was confusion, followed almost immediately by anger. In episode 3, we're introduced to Jack Seward before Lucy. We're supposed to sympathise with Jack because he's been rejected by Lucy, someone he loves? ? Except that we see he's a clingy creep, and she's a totally irresponsible and heartless character. Why does he even like her? Why do we like him? The most compelling character in episode 3 is the gay best friend, TM, because there's one of those in 2020. I just want the episode to have more of him. With Lucy, I really struggle to figure out what the show is going for versus what I'm seeing. Let me explain. When gay best friend, TM, points out that the way she treated Jack might be hurtful, Lucy replies by saying, "That's called slut-shaming. This hurts my brain." Do they think that they're using the term correctly and owning anyone in the audience who dislike Lucy? Do they think the term is bullshit and they're trying to show some kind of hypocrisy here? Are we just meant to think that Lucy is a sociopath? Slut-shaming is a term often used to decry societal resistance to women, particularly young women, having sexual freedom, but it's also used to expose a disparity between the way men and women are judged for sexual exploits. If a man fucks a lot of women, what a cool guy. If a woman fucks a lot of guys, what a slut. But Dracula isn't punished or portrayed as slutty for being with a lot of people. And again, I know that Moffat wants to say that what Dracula does isn't sexual, but that's like looking at a George O'Keeffe painting and going, "Ooh, look at all the pretty flowers." Lucy, on the other hand, is punished. A bunch. In the original novel, Lucy Westerner gets proposals from numerous men, and it's her, perhaps naive, capacity for love that makes her a target for Dracula. After she's turned, her 3 admirers and Dr. Van Helsing hunt her down, stake her heart, behead her, and stuff her mouth with garlic. Yikes. But I think Gatiss and Moffat make it worse. No, really, I mean it. In the show, she's cruel to Jack, but he is a creep, so whatever, then cheats on her fiancé, but he's a dick, so who cares? With Dracula. See, she's not over-capable of love, she's incapable of it. Is that me slut-shaming? I don't know. Also, Dracula mentions that maybe she should ask not to be cremated in the event of her death, right before killing her. She is then cremated, she looks like this now, but she still thinks she's pretty, until the truth is revealed in a selfie.
Roll the clip, Joe! Roll the fucking clip!
You're so beautiful, Lucy. Why don't you take a selfie?
She can't cope with this and so asks Jack to kill her. They have a kiss, ew, and he makes her explode, ew. This gives Jack the realization that he didn't own Lucy and neither did Dracula. That pile of dust on the floor right there, well, that's a free and independent spirit. Go her. Does Lucy like being pretty or does she resent it? I honestly can't tell. They didn't want Lucy to be a hapless victim in the story, so they made it so she deserves it? Or at least chooses to be killed by a man because of a selfie. It's almost impressive how badly they managed to handle this. Taking one of the few characters from this piece of Victorian fiction, treating her like this. That's like reading A Scandal in Bohemia and reimagining it so Irene Adler is a sexy dominatrix who... Wait a minute, who wrote this? Oh, of course. We meet again.
This is Moffat's Sexy People by Joe. Right, that's quite loud. Okay, we know that Moffat wrote the show with Mark Gatiss, so we shouldn't be talking about him exclusively. But for this stuff in particular, we're picking up on trends in Moffat's own shows, which, if you watch a lot of them, start to reveal some patterns. For instance, all the cool and quirky women sooner or later mention they have a past history with other women, an experimental year, or a first wife, or straight up tell people they're bisexual.
Lovely name, Rory. First boy I ever fancied was called Rory.
Okay.
Actually, she was called Nina. I was going through a phase.
If you plug your ears and drink the wine, it's easy to mistake this for being progressive. But keep watching and you'll see a parade of self-proclaimed bisexuals, but never anyone, actually lesbian.
And at the other end of the female insanity spectrum, Jane pretends to be bisexual with much the same result.
What do you mean pretends?
Jane. Are we supposed to believe there's a single woman out there you've actually slept with?
But Joe, what about Bill? What about Madame Vastra? Oh yeah, you're right. You're gay and you want to identify with someone? Here's a lizard. And her maid. Here, have this girl who's in love with a fucking puddle. What about this little shit? He forgets his lover exists, betrays him, and then dies. Eat your heart out, Moonlight. Moffat's been criticised for queerbaiting for years. Clearly he knows what it is by now, but he keeps doing it. Obviously he's got a reason for writing like this. It's worth pointing out that in the 2000s, Moffat was writing sitcoms, most popularly one called Coupling, loosely based on Stephen's own relationship with his wife. There he is. There's Steve. Hang on. I've seen that haircut before. Wait. Why do Moffat's men all have the same hair? I think the background of what was funny in the 90s is relevant, and explains a lot about Moffat's use of quote-unquote bisexual women. Because lesbians make a great punchline for middle-aged white men, and it sure sounds like something modern and cool.
15?
What?
I slept with 15 women so far. Of course, 2 of them were at the same time, but you know what those stewardesses are like. I think it was the uniforms.
Like, this stuff's gold. If you're someone's dad. My dad. However, it rarely plays this way with men. Because if you're straight, gay guys aren't sexy, they're threatening. Might this be why, on purpose or not, a lot of Moffat's villains are coded with gay stereotypes? Like Moriarty, he's crazy, he can do anything. And he's camp. Dracula, he's so threatening he could even flirt with you and steal your boyfriend because why not? They could have had a gay protagonist with the gay best friend TM, but for some reason they didn't keep him in the narrative. Look, he's right there. He's likeable. He's doing stuff. Is he going to save the day? Oh no. We never see him again. I want to make it clear that we don't think Moffat is a homophobe. In fact, Mark Gatiss is gay and he co-wrote the whole series. We just think it's weird that Moffat's been running into the same problems for so long and continues to make the same missteps, and that is worth bringing up. That said, let's get into Moffat's writing in general. We watched a lot of Moffat TV in preparation for this, to the point where we began to develop a condition. We like to call it Moffat Brain. His toolkit of quips and twists and tropes is so distinctive that we're starting to see through the cracks in the universe, like the impossible girl, or the genius girl, or the back from the dead nun girl, or the time-travelling girl, or the sexy girl with the power, or the TARDIS girl who is sexy. That's literally her name. So, you're watching a TV show, there's this immortal, impossibly powerful supervillain saying something like,
"You're mortal. You've been dying since the day you were born."
That's pretty cool. But you get another line like that, and another, and you see it again in a different show. Everybody is grand and full of this perfect, cynical wit.
At the end of everything we should expect the company of immortals, so I've been told.
nuclear codes, I could blow up NATO in alphabetical order in a world of locked rooms. The man with the key is king. And honey, you should see me in a crown.
He has walked this universe for centuries untold. He has seen stars fall to dust.
When literally everybody speaks like this, it stops being the character saying something quirky and starts to become the writer trying to impress you with a constant stream of one-liners.
As I've been trying to tell everyone for centuries, you are what you eat. Who are you?
You're every nightmare at once. An educated woman in a crucifix.
In a world of troubled roads, death is the last unprinted snow.
God! Every line Moffat puts to paper sounds like it's something screaming to be on a black t-shirt on Redbubble. You know, like the Normal People Scare Me t-shirt. If you asked me, a criminal knife in the back of the coolest typeface in the world, used for American Horror Story and Brother Bear.
You know what they say? Always take the weather with you.
Do they? Okay. It's like with Doctor Who, he got the taste for writing highly intelligent people and just couldn't stop.
I'm being extremely clever up here, and there's no one to stand around looking impressed. What's the point in having you all?
His episodes were full of people showing off how witty and bright they were, all the time.
There are two refreshments in your world, the color of red wine. This is not red wine.
And he did the same thing with Sherlock. In fact, it's the only thing he did in Sherlock. He also keeps doing this thing I'm going to call Moffat Selfcongratulations. These dialogues are always a punishing back and forth where someone is 50 steps ahead of someone else, patronising their way through explaining some very simple point. They are all over Moffat's run on Doctor Who.
Can't you read?
In this scene, River is trying to tell Amy that she is her daughter from the future. Yeah, just go with it.
You have to concentrate. No, I still can't read it. It's because it's Gallifreyan and doesn't translate. But this will. It's your daughter's name in the language of the forest.
I know my daughter's name.
Except they don't have a word for pond. Because the only water in the forest is the river. The Doctor will find your daughter, and he will care for her whatever it takes. And I know that. It's me.
Fucking hell. This isn't River Song explaining to Amy who she is. This is Moffat slowly revealing to us how smart he's been all this time. You watch this scene, you're not thinking about the characters or how they're feeling. Your brain's too busy doing mental gymnastics trying to figure out all these moving parts and put the puzzle picture together, which is a picture of Stephen Moffat with a big smile on his face and your TV license in the palm of his hand. Also, this makes the Doctor so emotionally irresponsible. Like, look at this guy. Why doesn't he explain? They're asking, it's definitely their business, and he just goes off grinning and laughing to God knows where. Okay, and another side note, why does Melody Pond go around calling herself an abstract translation of her name the wrong way round in a language she can't possibly have heard of? I mean, how does she know about it? Does she watch the show? I could do a breakdown of Sherlock self-congratulating, but we don't have all day. Plus, we know you've already seen that video, and if you haven't, go fix it. In Dracula, we get several of these, like this one from Harker, who's very sick and weak and tired, fed up with telling his story, but somehow he finds a flash of inspiration and tells his story like this. I should have been looking for a map, but there was no map. Ah yes, but when he told me that, he also told me where to find it. What did he say? I told you. I missed it. You did. Then you're quicker than me. No, I've always been slow. Oh, get to the fucking point and stop teasing us. Also, why does he hide it from her like that? Is he being sassy for her? Oh right, he's being sassy for the audience. And that only means one thing. Style over substance. Boo. Also, the justification for this doesn't make much sense. The guy who designed the castle was an artist, and artists want to be understood, and sunlight is a code for the face of your beloved, and somehow that means you have to crack open a picture frame? What? Also, I can't help but notice a few similarities across Moffat's shows. In Sherlock Season 3, it was really cool when Sherlock gets shot and takes the audience through all the things he can do in about 2 seconds to save his own life. It's a bold, creative, interesting scene, but it slightly loses something when you watch this scene from Doctor Who 2 years later. He jumps out a high window, and as he's falling, he enters his totally not a mind palace, imaginary TARDIS, and talks himself through how he's going to get out of the situation. In that scene, he talks through an imaginary Clara for reassurance. Very similar to Dracula having quasi-imaginary conversations with Van Helsing in Room 9. All the while, they're playing a hallucinatory chess game, which immediately triggered the Moffat Brain and took me to this scene in Coupling, where Sally's trying to persuade Patrick to stay the night, and we see the interaction played out through an abstract game of chess. In fact, in Coupling, that same character says,
And you're so slim, too. Slim, slimmity slim from Slimtown, Slimania.
"Oh, where have I heard that before?"
Because you're so thick. You're Mr. Thickety, thick face from Thicktown, Thickania. And so's your dad.
There's also a thing about second-hand stories. It's clear Moffat likes having characters tell us about awesome stuff because it means he gets to use his grandiose language instead of actually doing scenes. But people sitting around talking about stuff doesn't make good TV.
Yes, well, it's a family heirloom, which I think dates from 1760s.
Well, that's fascinating. And I'd just like to point out to viewers that it's only through the new magic of television that they can actually see us looking at this vase and describing it to them.
So he does have to write narrative sometimes, but he really likes using his grandiose language, so he often frames the story through someone explaining what happened. This is interesting once or twice, but after a while...
I never mentioned Mina at dinner. I'm certain of it.
A dog can sniff stories on the slightest breeze while we are blind in the wind.
It starts to affect the pace and spoil the drama.
Is this a story, or did this really happen?
Every story ever told really happened. Stories are what memories go when they're forgotten.
What a fucking classic Moffat line. I can already see the gifs. A Moffat line in a story time between a million-year-old alien and a sassy, impossible girl, congratulating the story itself for being interesting. It's too much. The Moffat Brain is setting in. Sorry, I should be getting back to Dracula, but because it's just... We didn't want to go nuts, but I mean... Have you seen this show? Fucking Mark Gatiss turns up and tells Helsing that they're violating Dracula's human rights. What?
Helsing just tells Dracula that he's more powerful than he ever thought, and then just pieces out saying she's won? God damn it, woman, you've doomed us all!
Helsing has cancer in this, but it acts more as a ticking time bomb. I don't think it's this generic countdown disease. Is this a bad case of screenwriter's lament?
They're naked in the sun at the end. They're just naked in the sun. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen.
The blood cult? What? Who are they? Why do they want to catch a vampire?
Why does he get in the box for 123 years? Why? Just one shot of a bit of wood hitting him in the side when the boat blew up. That's all it would have taken, Steve.
The blood cult covers up murders. They spent years planning this, and they're worried about Mark Gatiss taking them to court.
Imagine being in a secret society devoted to finding and understanding vampires, and the first thing you do when you see one is shove your fucking hand in its mouth.
Detective friend in London? Fuck me, are you serious?
Testimony! He calls the blood testimony!
Why don't you take a selfie? Moffat, why don't you take a fucking selfie? Actually watch the shows you write, and maybe you'll learn something. Take a look in the mirror, what do you see? Do you see yourself with that fucking quiff? Is that it?
Why is no one talking about this show? I mean, look at...
We found this video of one of the actors talking about that scene. I've no idea what scene they're referring to. It could be literally any scene in this show.
What is it with Moffat and storing all the dead people on a databank? The Library, Cybermen, The Matrix, Testimony... Testimony!
Why wasn't this a season hook? Why is episode 3 a completely different show? Is this the show they wanted to make?
Can he see himself in the mirror or not? One minute he says he can, the next he can't.
Why does Moffat always write this way? Every time, all his main characters are the same. In Doctor Who, Sherlock Holmes, and now Dracula. Why does he keep getting these shows? What else could he do?
Who's letting him do this? Did he pay a dominatrix to get pictures of the Queen in compromising situations? Does he just have a dartboard of famous British characters that he's going through?
It's only a matter of time before Moffat's James Bond is unleashed. A bisexual, scatterbrained, 3,000-year-old sociopath with the weight of the world on his shoulders and enough skeletons in his closet to hang all his suits on. The name's Bond. James Bond. I've walked this earth for centuries. I've seen cities crumble and stars go out. I've seen tyrants rise and fall, and I've seen whole species get wiped out. I caused a few as well. Now, give me a number.
I personally can't wait for his Hamlet. When Hamlet asks to be or not to be, His sociopath friend, also an imaginary dead dog played by Mark Gatiss, will jump in and ask, well, what the fuck does that even mean? What a stupid thing to say.
What?
Oh, Marmar.
Oh, at least he got it.
Each time Moffat finishes work on a show, he just climbs into a coffin full of paisley dirt and slumbers under the waters until summoned once again.
Why do they show cancer as a disgusting, rotting corpse? That seems a bit insensitive. You know cancer's, like, a real thing?
Nothing matters. Secret blood cult? Who cares? What are the rules of the beast? I don't fucking know. Becoming socially acclimatized by eating people? You know, the point of the first 2 episodes? Forget about it!
Who's funding this blood cult? They keep bringing it up like it's important. It's not. Nothing is.
He's in prison now. No, he's not. There are zombie children. Some guy called Jack. Who's this other Helsing? I don't fucking care. Do you want to take over the world? I don't know!
Oh, look. They built Dracula a perfect prison. Where have I seen this before? You get a perfect prison. You get a perfect prison. You get 3 perfect prisons, but they never do anything. They just get out.
I lie awake each night listening out for the little sounds, the creaking of the floorboards or the pipes in the walls, all the while waiting for Mark Gatiss to kick down my wall like the Kool-Aid Man and tell me I'm violating Dracula's human fucking rights!
So yeah, all said, this show's great. 10 out of 10. Definitely go and watch it.
No, really, we're not kidding. It's hilarious, it's insane. You'll never see anything like it anywhere else.
I know we did spend a lot of time slamming Moffat and Gatiss, but we do respect them as writers. They've made some great pieces of television, and at the end of the day, who cares if a show is bad?
Like, what does that even mean? How could you say something is bad when we've had this much fun with it?
Seriously, we love it. After this long of ranting about it, did you think we'd let it hurt? Hi, thanks for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe, share. We know you know that already, but really helps us out. This is our first go at a video like this, so I hope you liked it. What we normally do is a podcast called FilmSmash. It's really good, we promise. We take 2 unrelated films and find a way of smashing them together, combining them into a new weird film. My personal favourite at the moment is Scooby-Doo and a Lovecraft story, Shadow over Innsmouth. It's really wild, go check it out. There'll be a link in the description, so if you fancy it, go sink your teeth into that. Apart from that, we will see you next time.